we are in. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. It's so important to see this as something which is like a learning experience, that you have
Mhm.
something in the beginning and then you learn more and more about what you thought, and and the way you see things is changing while you're doing it, and it's something more humble in a sense, because
Eh,
it's not
Yeah,
like we know everything. We are so good at, like pumps or something like that.
true. In that way, it's humble. On the other way of thinking, you could also say you need to believe in your vision. So it's yes and no. So it's humble in the sense
Yeah.
that and it's. I think there was also somebody who said, the more I learn, the more I know I don't know. So to
Yeah.
have this mindset, but I think it's also important that you really find something you believe in, because how do you expect people to follow you if you don't believe in the idea yourself, in the vision yourself? So
Right.
that's also important. You don't need to want to be that humble that that people think, oh, doesn't he believe in what he's saying?
Yeah.
And
I,
but I'm
I I didn't mean that you will be like humble and won't say what you think. I
yeah,
thought about humble of not knowing
yeah,
and maybe experimenting and learning on your way, and not knowing everything in advance. And then once we know everything, then we could do something with it. It's
yeah.
more like we're all learning on the way, for sure.
Exactly. Maybe just one thing that just comes to mind. I think it's also important for corporates when they want to build a capability for innovation. They will also have to look in their different roles. And we see that it's relatively seldom that we see people that are brilliant in discovery, in the conceptualization, that also will be brilliant when they need to accelerate, because there's also two different worlds. There's also a difference between being the people who's trying to synthesize ideas from thought leaders, from own thinking, from lab experiments for discovery, and those who are more in a leadership role, who are trying to orchestrate a portfolio, who are who are working on establishing, creating, and maintaining the organizational legitimacy towards other senior leaders. So there are different roles in that as well. I think that's also important to understand. And some of them, especially if you work on assessing opportunity, will need to have a deeper understanding of technology, because part of it is for sure also the feasibility of a technology. And so I
For
think
sure.
that's also important to understand when you talk about what kind of people do you want working with innovation in corporates.
Yeah,
That
it's like
different
we
roles.
need both parts. One is more
Yeah,
of a vision and planning and seeing the strategy forward, and the other one is more like executing. How can we create that within our company, and how can we really create something, not only a vision, but
yeah,
go into the details. And in the details, we need all these people who know how to really go and understand the technology to the details, and to create that. It's not enough to talk about it, for sure.
exactly. And sometimes it's great to have, if you're working on digitalization, sometimes it's great to have somebody who can do high level coding if you want to make a fast learning prototype. So that can be very
Yeah,
valuable.
sure. Yeah, I think that in general, to know how to create a fast experiment,
Yeah,
how can we create something fast and experiment? It's so important to know that we're in a direction. We don't know the details in the end, but we know that this is something that we could do,
yeah.
if it's the right direction.
Yeah. Well, actually, one surprise to me, making working with also with some chemical companies, I think, when we talked about designing learning experiments, it was very clear that when they want to ask an outside agency to do some clinical test, they were brilliant about setting up the requirements, how do they measure results. But when we start talking about how can we make some experiments about is this valuable to the market, who will buy, then it's a lot more difficult for them to be specific on what is our learning hypothesis, what is it we need to learn, how would we know if we got a result that will help us forward. So
Yeah,
that was actually also a little surprising that it's not that easy to transfer that skill from their
yeah.
main skill as a chemist or a biologist or whatever the background, scientist, to another field that's into consumer behavior, market behavior, or business models or other things. And so that also needs some coaching to help these people to do that.
Yeah, I think it's what we said about like open-mindedness, that you could you have the skill, you have the talent, but you could use it in other like prismas, and you can
Yep.
see in a different matrices it could be used, and it really demands a flexibility from these people to see things differently and to act differently in different processes, and it's a great learning opportunity for people as if they want to learn, of course.